Good evening. We're ready to begin. The Planning Commission meeting is called to order. This meeting is properly noticed and posted in compliance with the open meeting law. These proceedings are being video recorded as well as presented live on KCLV, Cable Channel 2. Please note customers of CenturyLink and Cox Communication can view this program in high definition on Channel 1002 and in standard definition on Channel 2. You can also watch this meeting live on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV on the Go Vegas app. The Planning Commission meeting, as well as all other KCLV programming, can be viewed on the internet at www.kclv.tv/live. The proceedings will be rebroadcast on KCLV and the web the Saturday of the meeting at 10 a.m., Monday at midnight, and the following Tuesday at 6 p.m. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chair Cherry.
Present.
Vice Chair DeSalvio.
Present.
Commissioner Schlottman.
Present.
Commissioner Toussaint. Present. Commissioner Flangus.
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. I call your attention to the information printed in your agenda concerning our actions in the appeal and review process, if appropriate. Please read this carefully. If you have any questions, staff is available. There are agendas on both sides of the podium here. We appreciate you adhering to these rules so we can have a smooth meeting. Moving on to item number 4, all comments made under this item for specific action will be cross-referenced to those items. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak under this portion of the agenda? If not, we will move on to item number 5. Can we get a motion for the Planning Commission meeting minutes of May 14, 2019?
Vice Chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 14 and May 2018 of 2019.
There's a motion on the floor, please.
Mr. Chairman, before you vote, I'll be abstaining on the May 14th meeting because I wasn't in attendance that day.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, all right, please cast your votes. Please post, and that motion carries. Moving on to our housekeeping items, are there any items that commissioners, staff, or applicants, and the members of the public would like to pull forward for action? Does anyone wish to speak on any of these items? I'll go to staff for housekeeping.
Mr. Chairman, we have some housekeeping items. The applicant is requesting to obey items 10 and 11 to the July 23rd, 2019 Planning Commission. This is the second abeyance request for these items. The applicant is requesting to obey items 12 through 14 to the July 23rd, 2019 Planning Commission. This is the first abeyance request for these items. Staff is requesting to obey item 41, and the applicant is requesting to obey related items 39 and 40 to the July 9th, 2019 Planning Commission. This is the first abeyance request for these items. And the applicant is requesting to withdraw without prejudice item number 24. Thank you.
Thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard? Oh, we don't have to do that for housekeeping, do we?
Nope.
No. Right? No. Okay. So we need a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to approve the housekeeping items as read into the record.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes.
Did you want to vote verbally, Commissioner Flangus?
Yes, please. I'm not getting a prompt for the vote.
Okay. I'll mark you as a yay.
Okay, please post. That motion carries. Moving on to the consent items. Consent items are considered routine by the Planning Commission and may be enacted by one motion. However, any item may be discussed if a commission member or applicant so desires. I don't believe I have to read these into the record. Nope. Nope. We could just have a motion on the consent.
That's correct.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent items 7, 8, and 9.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes.
I'll be voting yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Flangus. Please post, and that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, items 7 and 8 are final action this evening unless appealed to the city clerk's office within 10 days. Item 9 will move forward for city council consideration on the August 7th, 2019 agenda.
Thank you. Moving on to the one motion, one vote. The following are items that may be considered in one motion, one vote. They're considered routine, non-public, and public hearing items. All public hearings and non-public hearings will be opened at one time. Any person representing an application or a member of the public or a member of the Planning Commission not in agreement with the conditions and all standard conditions for the application recommended by staff should request to have the item removed from this part of the agenda. And we will go to item number 15, SUP 76451, applicant Dad's Bail Bonds, owner Bonneville Center LLC, for possible action request for a special use permit for proposed bail bond service use at 608 South 3rd Street, Ward 3. Staff recommends approval. Item number 16, MSP 76356, applicant owner Clark County School District, for possible action request for a master sign plan for an existing public school primary at 9851 Donald Nelson Avenue, Ward 6. Staff recommends approval. Item number 17, VAC 76391, applicant owner Victory Missionary Baptist Church, for possible action on a request for a petition to vacate a 20-foot wide alley between E Street and F Street south of Jackson Avenue, Ward 5. Staff recommends approval. Item number 18, VAC 76442, applicant owner the Howard Hughes Company LLC, for possible action on a request for a petition to vacate public right-of-way generally located on Crossbridge Drive, west of Sun Creek Drive, Ward 2. Staff recommends approval. Item number 19, VAC 76444, applicant owner the Howard Hughes Companies LLC, for possible action request for a petition to vacate public drainage easements generally located on the north side of Alta Drive, west of Sky Vista Drive, Ward 2. Staff recommends approval. And finally, item number 20, VAC 76458, applicant owner the Howard Hughes Company LLC, for possible action on a request for a petition to vacate public sewer and drainage easements generally located on the north side of Alta Drive, west of Sky Vista Drive, Ward 2. Staff recommends approval.
Mr. Chairman, on item number 15, even though I'll be voting on the rest of them, I'd like the record to reflect that I'll be abstaining as to item 15. My cousins are the owner of the property.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard in these items? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. Go to Vice Chair DeSalvio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to entertain a motion for approvals for items 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, items 15, 16, 19, and 20 are final action this evening unless appealed to the city clerk's office within 10 days. Items 17 and 18 will move forward to the city council and be heard as a part of their agenda on August 7th, 2019.
Thank you. Moving on to the public hearing items, we're going to be pulling forward items number 43 and 44. I will be abstaining from the items. My family is in the cannabis industry, and we sell to all the dispensaries, so I will be abstaining. Turn it over to Vice Chair DeSalvio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to pull forward items number 43 and 44. Number 43 is SUP 75826, special use permit. Applicant Integral doing business as Essence Tropical LLC, owner tenant 15 Craig and Tenaya, for possible action on a request for a proposed 4,280 square foot marijuana dispensary use at the northwest corner of Craig and Tenaya. Staff has no recommendation. And item number 44, SDR 75825, Site Development Plan Review related to SUP 75826, public hearing, applicant Integral doing business as Essence Tropicana LLC, owner tentative 15 Craig and Tenaya LLC, for a possible action on a request for a major amendment to an approved site development plan review for a proposed 4,280 square foot commercial building on 0.95 acres at the northeast corner of Craig Road and Tenaya. Staff has no recommendation. May I have the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the proposed use does not meet Title 19 distance separation requirements as a martial arts studio that primarily services minors operates within the subject shopping center. This distance separation requirement is not eligible to be waived. Therefore, the proposed application is invalid and no action may be taken on the special use permit request. In the absence of compelling evidence that this application is valid, staff recommends that Planning Commission strike the special use permit application as the application was not eligible for acceptance by Planning Department staff. However, the proposed site development plan adheres to all applicable Title 19 development standards, and staff recommends approval of the site development plan review. Please note that there are additional letters of protest and support since publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Good evening. Jay Brown, 520 South 4th Street, representing the applicant. Item 43, which we'll take first, is the applicant's request, as you know, for a special use permit for a proposed 4,280 square foot marijuana use at the northeast corner of Craig Road and Tenaya Way. It's in a C1 zoning district. As you heard from staff, they've determined that we don't meet the requirements from protected land use. Staff states that there is a martial arts studio that primarily services minors within 300 feet of the proposed dispensary. The key phrase is that primarily services minors. A martial arts studio is fine, but it can't primarily service minors. I provided each of you with a letter from the owner of the martial arts studio that addresses the allegation directly. The letter is addressed to the City of Las Vegas Department of Planning. I call your attention to the very first sentence. I quote, "We are writing to confirm that the primary function of our martial arts studio is not instruction to minors." I also call your attention to the last sentence of the letter, and I quote, "As you can see from our online schedule, the majority of our regularly scheduled classes are geared towards adult students." The owner has no reason to lie or misrepresent to the city. The applicant asks that you approve our application for a special use permit, and with regard to item 44, there seems to be no issue with the site development plan review, as staff supports it, and we ask for your support as well.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. This is noticed as a public hearing. Does anybody from the public wish to be heard on this item? Please come forward and state your name for the record.
My name is Gail Roybal. I live at 7317 Stange Avenue. I have lived in my home in Deerbrook for approximately 27 years this year. We just recently, a couple days ago, happened to see the sign that this dispensary would take place. I am deeply, deeply concerned as a parent, as a neighborhood member of this dispensary being in my neighborhood. I recently went over to the, and this is, and with no disrespect if this is your area, but had to go over to the, I think, Sahara or Charleston Rainbow area in order to get something from a beauty supply shop over there. I had never been there before, but as I went over there, I noticed that there were several dispensaries right there. It was scary. It was not a very nice area. It is completely run down, and the people that were coming and going made me feel very uncomfortable. Our neighborhood wants to be a safe neighborhood. Our neighborhood wants to be one that we don't worry about our children. I live across the street from a elementary school, which is I think just barely, whatever the footage, 800 feet away from this area. Children walk up and down Craig Road over the overpass past this area every single day. And so there's a whole lot of land, there's a whole lot of area that is not in neighborhoods that I think that would be fine, but for our neighborhood, I would ask that you would consider that our neighborhood would not holding a dispensary there. I appreciate your time, appreciate your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ribal. Anybody else wish to be heard on this item? Please come forward. If anybody wants to speak on it, there's 3 mics. Jay, if you'd step to the side.
sure.
If anybody else wishes to speak, so we can move it on, please come down. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Denise Tomchek, and I'm a longtime member of Las Vegas, grew up here. I didn't come here to speak on this subject tonight, but I don't live very far from this area. I do go to places in that area, and I will tell you, the opening up of these dispensaries, you know, we all weren't in agreement with legalizing marijuana. But these places are infusing our neighborhoods, and the crap stinks. Okay? Anytime you're at a dispensary, anytime you're around there, the smell of marijuana infuses your neighborhoods, it infuses your cars, it infuses the buildings around it. If people want to smoke marijuana, go for it. It's legal now. But why should we, as a residents of this city, have to put up with the smell of it? And this poor lady right here, I agree with her. If that was coming up in my neighborhood, there are beautiful homes in that area. There are people that lived in that area for a long time. If people want to get high and want to escape whatever reality they're living in, go for it. But don't put it on us. Don't expose our children to it. Don't expose our community to it. Leave that crap in the seedy part of town where it belongs.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to be heard on this item? Please state your name for the record. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jill Ferrero, and I've lived in Las Vegas for over 40 years. I do live in the Northwest area, and I do frequent businesses in that area. As to the made mention to where the dispensaries are now, I frequent that area for my business. I do own a wedding flower company, and I do go down to the Highland area, industrial area, and there's quite a few quite a few dispensaries down there. One of the places that I go to is right across the street from that, Greenfield Wholesalers, who sells flowers, and right across the street is, I think, Ace's dispensary. And I remarked to the employees there, does it always smell like pot with that dispensary now? And they said, it's a constant smell of that. So I get that it's in an industrial area, but to put something like that into a private neighborhood where it's always being frequented by families and people are that are drawn to that, it's not the type of traffic that you would want in a more of a residential area. And when I am down in the industrial area picking up my supplies, there's quite a few different variety of people going to these dispensaries, so it's not lack of them having to come and drive to that, because if they want it, they will drive to it. So you don't need to make it closer. Where it's at is a great place, down in the industrial areas. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this item? All right, hearing none. Up too late. No, I'm joking. Go ahead.
Sorry. So my name's Jennifer Cordell, and I also live near that area and didn't come to speak on that. I came for a different issue. However, it's real close to homes, and even driving on the freeway, you can smell the dispensaries from downtown. It's highly nauseating. It's a nauseating smell, and to think that you're going to bring that into the homes, I just feel like, yeah, we made it a law, but we should probably make it a law that it's supposed to be a safe distance from residential areas. That's appalling that we would put that close to homes.
Thank you. Okay, seeing nobody else, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Brown, if you'd please come forward.
The only thing that I'd add in response to the neighbors, there should not be any smell coming from a dispensary. And if code enforcement were to find out that there was smell from a dispensary, that dispensary would have a serious problem. In addition to which, we all know that you can only smoke in your home. So you can't smoke in the vicinity of the dispensary. Also, and I'm sure this commission has heard this in the past, security of a dispensary almost is neighbors will have a problem with this, even helps the neighborhood because there's always security around a dispensary. With that said, we think this location is right by the Craig Road and the 95. There may be residences somewhere around there, but not really in close proximity to this location. So with that, we'd ask for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Now I'll turn it over to the commission. Commissioner,
If I could jump in real quick before you discuss, Mr. Vice Chair.
Please.
And with the permission of the Director Summerfield, there are two issues that you have to decide with respect to item 43. One is the predicate issue. Is this even a valid application? You heard staff's report that some time ago, they made a finding that this had a predominantly children's use, and then you have the evidence that Mr. Brown submitted tonight in the form of a letter from the owner who states that it is not an institution that is geared primarily for minors. Before you get to what the audience talked about, they talked about the merits of the application. That's whether or not it's harmonious and compatible with surrounding land use. But before you get to that question, you need to discuss the evidence before you as to whether or not this is an acceptable application and vote on that. If the vote is no, it stops there. If the vote is yes, that it is not an institution that you believe is used primarily by minors, then you get to issue number 2, which is the merits of the use permit.
And Mr. Vice Chair, at that point, if there is a finding by this board that this is a valid application, then I would ask that you come back to me, because then I do need to provide a staff recommendation as to the disposition of the application.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, can I just make a disclosure real quick?
Please,
Same
please do.
disclosure I've made for years. I've worked on dispensaries, production facilities, cultivation facilities in the county, city, North Las Vegas, all over. This isn't going to affect me any greater or lesser than any other. I've supported a lot of applications that come before us, and I've denied applications that's come before us too. So anyways, I'll have an independence of judgment on this, and I'll be able to vote on this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schlotman. Commissioner Toussaint.
Yeah, excuse me. I want to thank the residents for coming out and speaking, and I know this is a controversial issue, it really is. And I was over at the martial arts school, and there were probably 20 or 30 kids doing whatever they do in martial arts. But because this is so controversial, and because I believe that this needs more attention, I would like to obey this for 30 days so we can actually go into the details.
Mr. Brown, I guess the question would be to you. Do you have a problem with obeying this for 30 days, to have the commissioner as well as the new council person be able to massage this a little bit?
I don't. I mean, of course, I prefer not to. But if that's what Commissioner Toussaint wants, that's fine. I'm not so sure we shouldn't have a ruling, if we could, on the martial arts issue. I mean, I understand her concern with the neighbors, and we should maybe speak with them, and that's fine. But I would hope, that either we hear more from Mr. Jerbick and agree that based on that letter, that at least we get over the issue of whether or not we have a protective use here, because we feel we don't. But again, whatever the commission, feels.
So would you be in agreement with the abeyance for the 30 days in order
Yes.
for the new council person as well as the planning commissioner to dig a little bit deeper into it? Because I have concerns with it as well. And
Sure.
I don't think you got them there right now, so I think abeyance might be in your best interest.
Agreed. We'll obey it.
Excuse me, Mr. Vice Chair, also, would you agree to a neighborhood meeting so we can address these issues to the people that have concerns?
Certainly.
That would be my motion.
Okay, commissioners, you've heard the motion. Yes vote is to obey these 43, and do I take them individually?
What's the date? The date of the event?
It'd be 30 days.
Which is what date?
What's the date, 30 days from now? Help.
23rd.
The 23rd?
July
July
23rd.
23rd? Okay.
You concur?
Yes.
Okay, we heard the motion. The motion is to obey, and do we take it individually, 43, or do them both? Okay, so the motion is to obey items 43 and 44 for 30 days, July 23rd. You've heard the motion. A yes vote is for the abatement, and as well as hold a neighborhood meeting. And that motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Moving On to related items 21 and 22. 21, abeyance GPA 75668, applicant owner Zion Levenger for possible action on request for a general plan amendment from PCD to SC at 8311 Farm Road, Ward 6. Staff recommends denial. Related item number 22, abeyance ZON 75669 for possible action on request for a rezoning from RE to C1. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the proposed general plan amendment and rezoning is intended to provide most retail shopping and personal services. These areas should be located on the periphery of residential neighborhoods and should be confined to the intersections of primary and secondary thoroughfares along major retail corridors. The subject site is not part of the retail corridor found west of Tully Springs Road, nor is it at the intersection of thoroughfares. The proposed general plan amendment and rezoning would create a commercial parcel almost entirely surrounded by single-family residences. Staff therefore recommends denial of the general plan amendment and rezoning requests. Please note that there are updated property photos in your supplemental information packet. Also note that there are additional letters of protest and support since publication. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I get your name and address for the record, please?
Mr. Chairman, Nathan Taylor, 8414 West Farm Road, representing the applicant. Mr. Chairman, you read in 22 as well, right, the companion item?
I did, yes.
Mr. Chairman, before he starts, I have performed legal services for the applicant's representative, so out of an abundance of caution, I will be abstaining on items 21 and 22.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, before I begin my brief presentation so that you guys can get out of here early tonight, I'd like to have you look at the overhead here so I can just kind of orientate you all with the area so you can kind of understand where we're at and why we're asking for this use. If I see it's on the screen now. This is the subject property I'm going to be discussing tonight. You will notice that this is, while there's residential on two sides of the property, you will notice that across the street we have a huge Albertson shopping center. Right next door where I'm pointing now is a very large daycare center. This is Farm Road, which is a very busy street. I drive down the street every day. It's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of construction going on right now. They're building a restaurant on the corner here. I won't go in. You can see how much commercial is in the area. That's my point here, is that there's a lot of commercial in the area. And we're asking for something that has been asked for before related to this use. And I'll go through my notes here. Like I said, I'm going to try to be brief. I want to explain just a few important facts related to this property. My clients purchased this property almost a year ago. At that time, the property was in distress. It was boarded up. There were squatters living in there. There were small fires set. There were kids breaking in there. The landscaping was overgrown, among many other unattractive nuisances, which the city can confirm. Having said that, my clients invested over $1 million into improving and renovating this property. Keeping that in mind, this is a 1.5 acre property. The residence is over 5,000 square feet. During the fall of last year, my clients were looking for a way to share this property with others and make it sort of a destination property. In that spirit, they applied for a short-term rental permit. It was approved, and they began renting the property earlier this year. To say that there were challenges as a result of it operating as a short-term rental would not adequately convey that matter. And I've discussed with several of the commissioners, and they understand some of the unique circumstances concerning that. There were tenants that deceived my clients related to their planned activity on the property. Issues like the number of people on the premises, noise, outside after hours, events being held without approval. In addition, my clients were not aware that tenants were prohibited from holding small weddings or events or birthday parties on the property. I wasn't even aware that if I rented a property myself, that I wasn't allowed to conduct a birthday party for myself or my family member if I was renting a short-term rental. So I had to learn myself that that's not allowed. Once this was brought to our attention by the city and code enforcement, unfortunately, my clients decided to do something that I advised them not to do, but they did it anyway. They relinquished their short-term rental permit. They gave their short-term rental back to the city, which, as you know, nobody's applying for short-term rental permits anymore because They're only allowed in 3-bedroom houses that are owner-occupied. This property, as far as I'm concerned, had a piece of gold in having a short-term rental permit because you can't get one anymore for a property this size. So they decided, because they wanted to be good neighbors, and by the way, I live in the area, my clients live in the area, they want to be good neighbors. Unfortunately, there were a couple things that happened on the property, and they tried to get control of it, and that's why we're going through this process. Realizing that the better use for the property would be to utilize it as a banquet facility instead of a short-term rental, we did meet with code enforcement and business licensing to discuss that there were a few weddings booked on the property and that we would not be able to cancel them. Unfortunately, that's not something you want to do to a bride, is cancel their wedding. So we did meet with Mary McElhone and code enforcement, and we discussed that there were some things scheduled on the calendar that we didn't want to cancel. My clients paid the fine. And then we chose not to schedule any more events after that. In order to operate as a banquet facility, we're required to apply for this GPA and the zoning change. This, by the way, is only the first part of the land use approval process. After these applications are approved, we will have to come back before this board for a site development review and a special use permit to allow for a banquet facility. Some of the neighbors in the area have asked me, why is this a better use for the property than a short-term rental? The simple answer is that the banquet facility use is highly regulated, much more than the STR was. As part of the approval process, there will be conditions placed on the special use permit, and we know this based on talking to city staff. There will be hours of operation imposed on this property, conducting a banquet facility. They will have to adhere to the city noise ordinances, parking requirements, among many other things. It's also worth noting that this request is similar to another banquet facility a few hundred yards down the road. Full disclosure, I got married at the Grove, which is just a few hundred yards from here. The Grove is surrounded completely by residential, single-family homes. They are able to operate in a cohesive manner with their neighbors and have been for many years. I would like to mention we also held 2 neighborhood meetings. The first one, which was mandatory, because all GPAs are mandatory to hold a neighborhood meeting. The second one was voluntary. We had 50 people show up to the second neighborhood meeting, and out of the 50 people that showed up, when we discussed what we wanted to do here with the banquet facility, all 50 people were in favor of this application and support the application. There was not one person at that meeting opposing this application. With all this said, we respectfully ask that you vote for approval, and I'm available tonight to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard in this item? I see some people. We have 3 microphones.
They should probably line up, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
if you could please line up. I'll give each person a minute. I need your name, your address, if you're for or against, and why.
My name is Karen Condos, and I live at 8331 Fort Halleck Avenue, which is literally behind this property. In fact, it's right here. That's my house. And I will tell you, as the short-term rental during that time that it was given that, it was obnoxiously loud and kept my children up at night. So when I went to the meeting to find out what they were going to change it into, and that they were going to be having these weddings or parties or things like that, but that there would be a cap on the time and they couldn't go all night long, and all of those things, that I realized that that would be very beneficial for me as an immediate neighbor. Like, I could throw a stone and hit that house from where I live. So I am definitely in favor of this change, and especially because knowing several of the owners, they are respectable people that will follow these rules, and weren't able to enforce those rules when those people were doing short-term rentals.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. Can I get your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, my name's Denise Tomczyk. I live at 7217 Robbins Roost Street. Not only a resident, but I also worked in that area. I served as a longtime administrator at Arborview High School. I'm very familiar with the community and issues within the community. I resided in my house for the last 21 years, and I will tell you, traveling up and down farm, this property, which is now called Lotus House, is set as an eyesore. These young men, these owners of this home, have taken the time, energy, and financial backing to create something that's more of a pleasant sight to drive by. They're trying to make a change in the community, and I know historically that home was also going to be purchased by the Hayden family to make as a daycare center. So it wasn't always just a home sitting there. There was perspective perspectives for that to serve as a business venture. Also, as a resident in the community, I've seen extreme amount of uncontrolled growth in that northwest area. I moved into the Centennial Hills area before it was even called Centennial Hills. The overcrowding of the growth in this community has caused overcrowding in our schools. So I'm quite puzzled of why this is becoming such an issue where they beautified the neighborhood. There are...
I need you to wrap up on the comments, please. We've gone over the minute.
Oh, did I really?
Yeah.
I do gab a lot, I'm sorry. So anyways, in favor of them with proceeding with this change to this property.
Thank you very much for coming out.
Justin Roberts, I live at 8124 Marin Point Avenue. I've lived there since November of 2001. I've driven by this house multiple times a day. Over the years, it's been sold 3, 4, 5, 6 times up to the current owners now. I retired in January as the assistant chief over at North Las Vegas Police Department, so very cognizant of what comes in and out around our neighborhood. For years, squatters, homeless, drug users breaking into it when it was abandoned. I know that this house was out there, I don't know how many years ago, and the guy who built it was an engineer for the city of Las Vegas way back when, and he left it because the city caught up with him out there. I know the owners of the property now, very respectful. They intend to do what they say, and I recommend that this be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Thank you for your comments. Can you get your name and address, please?
My name is Jill Ferrero, and I live at 8924 Settle Red, which is very close to this area. As stated before, I am in the wedding industry. I do flowers, and I do know the owners personally, and I do know that they have integrity. As for when I do weddings and I contact the venues, I find out from the coordinators what items and restrictions are, what things I can do and can't do at them, and I know that they're highly regulated, and that a coordinator is constantly on staff to make sure everything is going through as planned, and to put out, or to, make sure that the guests adhere to those, and those that have rented out the place to do so. This area is in need of a nice updated wedding venue. There's not a lot in this area that is able to accommodate people in a nice, modern area. And I am for this. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Can I get your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Jacob Clay. I live at 7710 Racell Street. I've grown up in this area for the last 18 years. I went to high school less than a mile away from this. I've been going to the church building that's just a couple inches down on the map. I've been around this area my whole entire life, pretty much. I've had friends who have known people that have done terrible things inside the Lotus House. I myself was part of renovating it and taking out all the horrible, evil things that we found inside of there. The amount of transformation that's gone into this building and the amount of positive things that it's brought to this community is something that we can't really measure based on what we've seen so far. I am for this going through, and it's a huge benefit to the community.
Thank you, Mr. Clay. Name and address, please, for the record.
Deloy Blanchard. I'm at 8092 Black Orchid Avenue. I'm in the neighborhood across the street on Farm Road. I would second everything that's been said. I'm in favor of this change. I've lived there for about 5 years. It has been an eyesore, always been boarded up as long as I could remember. No occupants there. Also, I think the other thing that should be pointed out is, although this is near residential areas, the neighborhoods across the street where I live, these are all gated neighborhoods that are fenced in, and as well as the other neighborhoods on Farm Road that are next to this. So these aren't within a neighborhood. They're actually the only buildings that are facing farm. Everything else is within a gated neighborhood. So it doesn't appear to be in a residential neighborhood. In my opinion, it fits perfectly with a commercial property.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Name and address, please, for the record.
Brian Horner, 10215 Radcliffe Peak Avenue. Yes, I'm the owner of Kingdom Home Remodel. We actually had the pleasure of remodeling the home that we're speaking about tonight. And just to give you an idea, when we originally came into that home, what was going on was, as said earlier, there were squatters, no exaggeration, probably over 100 used needles, just as many condoms, feces throughout the house. I had to have a separate third-party hazardous cleanup crew come in and take care of it. So, and it's crazy because right next door is a daycare and this is all going on. So when I say earlier that I had the pleasure, it really is a pleasure. I am a
father of 3. I live less than 2 blocks away. So being able to take something that was so dark and to turn it into something so beautiful, I'm definitely in favor of this tonight. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Horner. Thanks for coming out. Name and address, please, for the record.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Farrell, and I was born and raised in Las Vegas. I love Las Vegas. I lived in the Northwest for 17 years. 8924 Salarette is where I live. My wife spoke earlier, talked about the wedding flower business. My sons helped transform that property from what it was before. As of what Jacob said, they took the evil out of that house. And I'm excited to see what's going on in that corner when Sprouts came in, when China A Go-Go came in, and all these wonderful places. And now they're building a mega breakfast house. What more can we ask for? And now a wedding venue to top it all off. My wife works in the wedding business, and she's been there many, many years. And there's one thing about Las Vegas. We're talking all of Las Vegas. It's underserviced on the wedding venues and banquet halls. There's not enough. And when you do find one, they're very, very expensive. If you go to the Grove, which I believe is about 1.25 miles away, which is surrounded on all sides by residential, and they've worked in harmony the whole time with the residents, they do 500 weddings a year. That's just to let you know how underserviced this is. And what's nice about this property, if it gets rezoned, it's gonna constantly have staff there. And then during the business week, they'll have their offices in the front.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell.
It'll be a
We
very
need to
nice
wrap up
place.
the
Thank
meeting.
you for taking the time.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Garrett Ferrero. I live at 8924 Saddlered Avenue. And so I grew up going to the high school nearby. And I remember this house is kind of like the haunted house that everyone always talked about because it was like a thing for people to go in there to throw rocks and break the windows, to break the drywall, and to do other promiscuous things in there. And so it was definitely a place that attracted the wrong type of crowd. But seeing the transformation that it's gone through and what it's going to be used for, I think it's very important because since it's no longer going to be a vacation rental property, people are not going to be staying there overnight. There's going to be a time when people are forced to leave, and there will be people that will constantly be there to regulate it. And so instead of people being there just to regulate themselves, we're going to have staff. There will be staff there to regulate it. So I think it's an amazing thing that they're able to transform this to something that's very productive for the community and productive in a good way.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out.
My name's Stephen Perman, and I live at 8344 Fort Sedgwick. I actually live right against this property, and the sound noise of 50 feet, which is allowed past the property, covers my whole house. And in my home, I've had opportunities where you've been upstairs in the early evening, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and you have the TV on, windows closed, and you can still hear the noise, the music. Gets to the point where my dogs will start barking because they think someone's outside the home. So my house has actually been aggravated by this whole process. And controlling weddings and events at this home, if it's anything like what they plan on doing, in my opinion, the last event, which was June 8th, actually they had staff on site, and they still went past 9, 10 o'clock. And when I called the police to come quiet down, after I called the owners and the person I was told to contact to quiet down, they didn't answer the phone. So I was forced to call the police to come out. Police came out, and when they got to my home, they actually told me I was one of the multiple neighbors in that community, and our neighborhood is not a gated community. When the officer showed up, he said they are averaging at least twice a week stopping by this property to keep it quiet. So my home, even with the noise coming through, the thick walls, insulation, dual pane windows, I still can hear the noise. I've been in my backyard during the day, doing yard work on a weekend, even during the week. And you could hear the language that comes from the home from times. I usually work early in the morning, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and if they have events going on, 10, 11 o'clock, there's been times where they've had people staying at this home when it was the bed and breakfast, where they'd race their cars down Farm Road at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning with their exotic cars. To us in my household, and I know there's a couple other neighbors that may not speak tonight, they are against this, and for me in my household, you have a hard time trying to get rest before you go to work the next day.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. Thank you for coming out. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Andrew Parker. I live at 8321 Fort Sedgwick Avenue. Is this property right here directly behind the Lotus House? And actually, the concerns of the gentleman prior to me are valid. I've experienced those same things with noise, but I am absolutely for the approval of this because the shift in permit would allow them to obviously have more oversight and properly properly operate this property. Now, I personally am a freelance photographer. I am also in the Air Force Reserve. I've done 8 years Air Force Reserve and 10 years active duty. Lived at this property for the last 10 years. Quite honestly, these guys are capitalizing on exactly what that flag stands for and what America stands for. It might seem a bit much, but to put in a wedding venue, event venue in this neighborhood is doing exactly what I think we should be doing and capitalizing on free enterprise, utilizing the space effectively, right, and adding value to the community. And I don't see anything wrong with this. And yeah, with the noise complaints, I think that'll stop as soon as this changes permit and then they're allowed to operate effectively with a daytime permit.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Can you get your name and address, please, for the
My
record?
name's Delaney Figueroa. I live at 9866 Smoky Moon Street. I'm actually one of the brides who may have to scramble with a month to find a new venue. I have people coming from as far as the Philippines. I'm also a private event planner, and I have looked and tried in the last couple months with the uncertainty about the venue to try to find something as beautiful and wonderful as this property, and I have really struggled to find something, so I am definitely in favor of it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out. Can I get your name and address, please, for the record?
Hi, my name's Jennifer Cardell, and I live in the neighborhood right about one more road over. I've lived there for 8 years, and in question to this whole commercial thing that we see, there is a business shopping center right here. This farm is a very busy road. It's highly unsafe even for kids and families that bike on it. It's not encouraged. It's got 4 or 5 lanes, constant construction. This is a bar. This is all commercial, and then right about down here is a huge plant facility, not only like a nursery. Then here's a church. So, and like they said previously, there are huge walls that block this off so that this is actually perfectly outlined for commercial. It would just complete it with the daycare it's right next to. As far as I have heard, the complaints about what's been coming and the noise and all of that, I feel that this change in zoning would really support those that are complaining because the noise would stop. The people don't stay there. They wouldn't have, you wouldn't have to stay overnight to monitor whether they're following the rules or not. They would have to leave the premises at the closing hour. And I really think that that would alleviate a lot of the complaints that are coming from the neighborhood behind. So I'm in full support.
Thank you very much. Can you get your name and address for the record?
My name is Paul Schwartz. I just live in the Lamplight community, which is right just down the road, 7821 Hidden Gazebo. Just echoing a lot what's been said tonight. I personally do not know the owners, but I have lived in this area for about 8 years. I have driven by this house all that time. There's been many times when my wife and I have looked at it and wondered what in the world is this property doing. It's never looked so good as it is now. So I just want to echo my support that we do support what the new owners are doing with it.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out. Can you get your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, Kevin Sagers, 7938 Lost Ranger Peak. Much has been said about the beautification of the property and the, the improvement of the overall look of the area. I won't comment further on that, but just logically thinking about the zoning change, the only thing that really makes sense to me as a neighbor, if you're trying to control something on a property such as this, whether it's private activity or a short-term rental or anything like that, is to further regulate it by making it a commercial property and having it zoned as something that you can actually regulate. I applaud the owners for realizing that and relinquishing their short-term rental. Even though they gave up a substantial financial gain from that, this was a golden egg in terms of that. They had a lot of high-profile people wanting to rent the property, including professional athletes and things like that. And as a person in the community, I personally wouldn't want that stuff, and so I'm highly in support of further regulating it by making it commercial.
Thank you very much. Can you get your name and address for the record, please?
I'm Ryan Ferrero. I live at 8924 Saddle Red Avenue. I am for the rezoning to commercial. I went to high school in the area a couple years back, and it was as I'll echo what I said before, this was like a whorehouse. People would not do good things there, and I knew people who were doing bad stuff there, and I am for the change to commercial to keep it regulated and because it has beautified the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you name and address for the record, please?
Josh Haldeman, 9024 Glenastar Gate. Just want to echo what a lot of the people have said, that in favor of the commercial development, how there's a bar down the street, there's a daycare next door, and it's really going to help reduce the noise. I appreciate the neighbors that are coming out and talking about it, because we worship near there, we eat near there, we shop there, and so we're all for the change to commercial.
Thank you very much. Can you get your name and address, please?
Caden Roberts, 8124 Marin Point. I attended the high school just over a mile away, graduated from there. I live in the development just across the street, lived there for the past 2 decades. As far as what the owners are doing, they've done nothing but made this place beautiful, made this attractive more commercial activity. Since I've lived here, it's been nothing but a stain to the area. Many of the kids that have done the evil stuff in there attended the high school over a mile away. Not only does it promote more growth, it's also brought more commercial activity, which is surrounding the area. And so I'm for the approval of the, for commercial.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out.
Hi, my name is Rochelle Hendricks. Address is 7629 Hidden Gazebo Street. I live in the neighborhood that's just right here down the street. My backyard actually is a neighborhood park. So my back gate opens straight up into a neighborhood park. And I want to validate this gentleman's concerns about the noise. However, I will say the positive is that once you have something that's regulated with code and able to be enforced, it is noise that we can call, and it gets addressed immediately. Quiet time, we've had an issue sometimes with people playing basketball before 7 a.m. We are able to enforce it easily, and honestly, the noise that we typically hear is going to be family noise, and so we accept that because, in my opinion, that's the type of noise you want to hear versus what could be in this address instead. The other thing is that the type of noise, yes, it does attract a park like that or an area like this. It's always going to attract. We have kids. We call kids the security on kids that are smoking pot all the time, but it's able to be enforced and regulated, and I'm for this change.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Anyone else from the public like to be heard on this item? Seeing no one, will close the public hearing. I'll ask the applicant to come back up. Give you another minute if you'd like to comment.
Mr. Chairman, I have like a 10-minute rebuttal. I'm just kidding, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I would like to say, Mr. Chairman, again, Nathan Taylor, 8414 West Farm Road, is, and I forgot to mention this, but one of the neighbors in support of the application mentioned it. I think it is worth mentioning that now that we've given up the short-term rental, we're moving toward the banquet facility. It is worth noting there will be no one living or staying on the premises like the problems we had in the past with those that rented the property and told us there was going to be 5 people and there was 20 and there was noise at 11 o'clock at night. So this will alleviate that problem, and I should have mentioned that in my earlier presentation. But other than that, I'm here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to the commission for discussion. Commissioner Toussaint.
Yes, I went by this property and I was really impressed. I mean, really and truly. If I was going to have a banquet, if I was going to have a wedding, if I was going to have an event, I would definitely have it there. What the people have done to clean this property up was just amazing, and you'll have my support tonight.
Commissioner Schlotman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you. Question for planning staff, or maybe the director or somebody. Could somebody explain the reason why we don't have conditions of approval? Is that due to the fact of this is a GPA and we don't have those conditions of approval? And will we see a SUP in the future if it comes back as a wedding facility or wedding chapel or anything of the sort?
Mr. Chairman, through you. So, Commissioner, you don't have conditions of approval because what's before you today is a zone request and a general plan amendment, which are not conditional applications. Once you make that change is set until someone makes a future application to do a zone change. You will not have a special use permit for the stated use. A banquet facility does not require a special use permit in the C1 zone. And if they were to do even a wedding chapel, that also is a permitted use in a C1 zone and doesn't have a special use permit. So you will not have an opportunity to set hours of operation conditions, operational conditions at all. The only further application we would expect on this property, given what the applicant has stated that they want to use the property for, will eventually, before they'll be able to come forward for a business license, they will need to submit a site development review to convert the residential building into a commercial building. But that will be the only future application that could potentially come through Planning Commission based on the stated request.
Mr. Chairman, through you, if I may continue, would that require, I mean, could that be an administrative approval where it just bypasses the Planning Commission and the general public, and, or will that, if they do something of the sort, would it come back to, the SDR come back to the Planning Commission?
What's the square footage, sir?
So the lot's 1.5 acres and the square footage is 5,000 square feet.
The house is 5,000 square feet?
Yes.
Based on that square footage, that may exceed the thresholds for administrative site development reviews, but I don't have that analysis right now. So we'd have to look closer at it when they bring that application forward to determine if it qualifies for what we call minor review, which would allow us to do it administratively, or if it would require a public hearing and have to come forward to City Council or for Planning Commission.
Well, let me ask another question, because that's an interesting point. I remember in the past, we had banquet facilities in the Arts District, I think on, potentially on Commerce or Main Street, here within the past 3 years, and I could have sworn that they had a special use permit. So is there a particular time when a banquet facility would require a special use permit and other times that it wouldn't require a special use permit?
Mr. Chairman, through you, so it looks like we last updated the banquet facility components back in November of 2011, so I don't know that there's been anything recently. What you may be thinking of is if the application, if at some point they decide to hold a liquor license on this location. So if they were to choose to have alcohol as a component that they own versus doing something where a liquor caterer brings in alcohol for the special events that they hold, at that point the location will require a special use permit for the alcohol component if they choose to be responsible for alcohol themselves.
Okay. All right. Well, I think I understand this a little bit better. I mean, the building, let me just ensure one last thing. So will they be required to go back and convert this from a residential structure to a commercial structure and go through that? Since there's no condition that we can put on it, is there a trigger for that? Because, I mean, I'm looking back from 2008. That was the last permit pulled on this permit, on this project. And if they've done significant improvements over the past couple of years, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, through you to answer that question, Commissioner, there are requirements to the Southern Nevada Health District that my clients will have to meet related to the new use. And so to answer your question, yes, there will be have some significant changes that must occur from the Health District.
Okay.
Further, through you, Mr. Chairman, so my staff just sent me an email. So yes, so after this zone change, this house will be able to still be used for residential until such time as the applicant wants to move forward with the commercial use of the property. Once they come forward to try to do the commercial use in terms of getting the business license to conduct a business at this location, they will have some additional applications. So because as a residence, it meets the RE standards, but as a commercial building, it does not meet the C1 standards. They not only will have to come forward for a site development review to convert the building into a commercial building, but because it doesn't meet the C1 standards, they will need to come through for some variances to clean up some residential adjacency issues, and it looks like there's probably going to be a setback issue, and there's going to be some landscaping requirements, because now that it's going to be commercial, it's held to a different standard.
Okay, so it looks like we're going to see this.
But again, that does not allow for operational conditions. That will be development conditions that they'll have to meet at that time.
But business licensing would still have teeth. I mean, they still have their own rules that they have to follow with per Title VI, right?
Correct. They will have to adhere to whatever Title VI rules for the specifics of the business operation that they do bring forward for staff review.
Okay. Well, I think the building, it's a nice-looking building. I think you're going to have your work cut out converting this. You know, that's what my company historically has done in the past with a lot of buildings. So it's possible. I know it's possible, but you're going to have a little bit of work cut out for you. I just wanted to make sure we had the mechanisms in place to, you know, cover us with building and safety and fire and all that jazz. But that's something that we really don't look at today. We're looking at it from a planning perspective and if it's right for the area or not. And shockingly, we've heard from a lot of residents on both sides. So it was good to hear from everybody, and I appreciate everybody coming out and expressing your opinions today. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to kind of keep the conversation going a little farther, I hope it's understood by going to C1 that a year from now, the banquet facility might not be there, and another use that could easily qualify under the C1 could come there. So the neighbors should understand that, and hopefully the applicant has briefed them like they've briefed them on other things, because that's what we're looking at today is a zone change. And I will say, because I owned a banquet facility in the Las Vegas Valley, and we did it in 4-hour blocks, and when it came to 11 o'clock and the person wanted to go another hour, they paid their $1,500 or $1,000, whatever it was. They wanted to go another hour, they paid us again. So it is, you know, to say the noise is going to stop, it doesn't mean it's going to stop, and we don't regulate it any differently, if I understand that correctly, when it comes forward, from what it is today to what it would be in the future.
Correct. There's no difference in the noise regulation that would apply as it was being operated as a short-term rental versus what it would be required to adhere to as a future potential banquet facility.
Thank you. And I just wanted to get that out there because I do appreciate the support that comes out, and it is important that neighbors understand both sides of what can happen. So I'll pass it on to Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, you heard what Mr. Summerfield stated, and you heard what the Chairman Cherry stated. The C1 zoning, and the statement you guys gave, I'm all for what my board wants. And the owners I know, I've been in their house multiple times, we've had meetings, we sat down, but I got to make sure you guys understand this. You're specifically asking for this residential property to go to C1, which once we do that, we have zero control over whatever that operator or that homeowner at that time decides to do with that property. And C1 could be a multitude of different commercial businesses. Just want you to understand that, number one. Number two, I can't sit here, nobody up here can sit here and tell you that the noise ain't gonna go on past 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night. We cannot condition that property. So if you were, everybody here said, oh, you're gonna be able to control the noise if you change the zoning into C1. That's the furthest from the truth, and I want you guys to understand that. If you want it, I'll make the motion to approve it, but be careful what you ask for, because you just might get it. That's all I'm gonna tell you, because everything I heard up here is the polar opposite of exactly what you guys are trying to circumvent. So if you guys are fine with it, I have no problem, but I just wanted to make sure that was clear and on the record. Mr. Summerfield stated it, Chairman Schlotman raised the question, and Chair Cherry reiterated, and I just brought it up again. I just want you to understand that. Like I said, I think the owners and the operators are great people. I met with them numerous times. They've even helped me out on a couple of occasions where mail was sent to the wrong location. But I want to just make sure you guys understand, this does not stop the noise. This does not stop the traffic. If anything, it might just intensify it. I'm not saying it would, but it possibly going down that road. So I just want you to understand that. If there's no other comments, I'll make a motion to approve, but like I said, careful what you ask for, you just might get it. That's my motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post.
Thank you, Commissioners. Have a good night.
Motion carries. Thank you.
22-2.
Oh, item number 22.
Make a motion for approval on item number 22.
There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, those items will move forward to City Council and be heard as a part of their agenda on August 7th, 2019.
Thank you very much. Moving on to related items, number 23 through 26. 23, abeyance ZON 76236, applicant Wheeler RV Mini Storage, owner Stephanie Evans et al., for possible action on request for a rezoning from PR to C1 at 1333 Arville Street, Ward 1. Related item number 25, abeyance SUP 76310, for possible action on request for a special use permit for a proposed mini storage facility use, Ward 1. Staff recommends approval. And finally, related item number 26, abeyance SDR 76250, for possible action on request for a site development plan review for a proposed 3-story, 292-unit mini storage facility consisting of 2 buildings for a total of 57,900 square feet, with waivers to allow a 0-foot landscape buffer adjacent to the north and south property line and a 0-foot landscape buffer adjacent to the portions of the east property line where 8 feet is required. Staff recommends approval. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the subject segment of Arville Street has over time transitioned from residential uses to office uses. The proposed rezoning would follow this trend towards more commercial applications and be compatible with existing developments along Arville Street. The proposed mini storage facility meets all Title 19 requirements except for landscape buffer along portions of the site's perimeter and landscape materials within the parking lot and adjacent to the east property line. Despite the waiver and exceptions, the development incorporates additional planters and a screen wall to buffer the facility and parking lot from neighboring properties in the right-of-way. Therefore, staff recommends approval of all applications. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi.
Hi, good evening. Jennifer Lazovich, 1980 Festival Plaza Drive, here tonight on behalf of the applicant. First, let me take a moment to thank staff for working with us on this application. We appreciate the recommendation of approval. We also worked with an adjacent neighbor to address some of their concerns regarding the setback width as well as some landscaping. We have provided those plans to staff, and as we stand before you tonight, we appreciate their recommendation of approval, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard in this item? Seeing no one, I will turn it over to the commission for discussion. And I will quickly say thank you for working with the neighbor, and I understand they talked about the site plan and the intensity of it, and the applicant was willing and did scale it back. The only question I have is on the north side and the east side, is that wall at 8 feet? Because I believe that's one of the things they talked about.
Wait a minute. Ooh. It is, actually, yes, on the plan that we submitted, it shows on the north side, new 8-foot CMU wall, and on the east side, new 8-foot tall CMU wall.
Thank you very much. That's, I believe, what they agreed to, and I wanted to make sure it was on the record. Anyone else have any comments on this item? With that, I believe I can make a motion. Okay. On item number 23, abeyance ZON 76236, make a motion for approval. Please post. And that motion carries. Item number 25, abeyance SUP 76310, make a motion for approval. Yeah. Please post. And that motion carries. And item number 26, abeyance SDR 76250, make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, if I could cut in real quick. We just realized we have a condition that requires a 6-foot wall. Maybe we should remove that condition if the new plans show an 8-foot wall.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just add, so a portion of this plan shows a new 8-foot tall CMU block wall, and then a portion of it shows an existing 6-foot tall CMU block wall on the north and east. On the south, and I don't believe anybody is asking for a taller wall over there, it is a new 6-foot tall CMU block wall all the way across on the south. So I think we do want to keep the 6-foot tall wall on the south. on, and obviously I turn it over to the commission and you can tell me what you want to do. It looks like on this plan, we have very small portions of the plan that show an existing 6-foot block wall, and then we are proposing a new 8-foot tall block wall. So I'm not entirely sure what we do with the existing 6-foot tall portions on the north and east side.
Okay, well, I think we'd like to see it, I'd like to see it 8 feet. The portion to the south, that owner came before the last planning commission and had a zone change to C1. Didn't bring up any issue specific to the wall there.
Okay.
So I don't have any issue there. It's really just to the north and to the east.
And this item goes on to City Council, I believe. And so if I could commit to just make sure that we can do that, we can add the courses onto the 6-foot tall portion as we go on to City Council. If we can do it, yes, but I just want to make sure that we can do that. So I understand the intent of the condition, and I need to make sure it works.
Okay. Okay, so it's a motion with that condition change on there. And then I guess in between that you'll
Yeah,
have
and
to
then I'll
work on it.
confirm.
So would staff like to read in the condition?
Mr. Chairman?
I just have a question.
Vice Chair.
Yeah, for clarity. So if the existing owner of that block wall does not give them the permission to add 2 more feet to that wall, are they still going to be held to do an 8-foot wall within 3 inches of the existing wall?
Correct, Mr. Vice Chair. Yes, the requirement is that there be a wall, and if the neighbors can't come to agreement, then the applicant is obligated to construct the wall. Mr. Chairman, if I might, instead of editing this condition at this point, if staff will take under direction the requirement that the north and east wall be 8 feet, and we will update condition number 5 of SDR 76250. We'll work with the applicant to determine about that other portion of the wall and have a condition for City Council that reflects your intent and request, if that's acceptable.
Yes, that is acceptable, and it is my understanding that the applicant has met with the owner, and that's what they did agree to as well.
Okay.
As far as going to the 8 feet. So, okay, so I will make that motion with that, what the director has just said. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your vote. Please post. And that motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, as stated, those 3 items will move forward to City Council and be heard as a part of their agenda on August 7th, 2019.
Thank you very much. Moving on to related items 27 through 30. 27, abeyance renotification, VAR 7582, applicant Fisher Brothers, owner Integral Partners, Park Place Center, Las Vegas, LLC, for possible action request for a variance to allow 921 parking spaces where 2,869 parking spaces are required at the southwest corner of Sirius Avenue and Rancho Drive, Ward 1. Staff recommends denial. Related item number 28, SUP 76362, for possible action request for a special use permit for proposed 213,748 square foot liquor establishment use, Ward 1. Staff recommends denial. Related item number 29, SUP 76663, for possible action request for a special use permit for proposed 213,748 square foot nightclub use, Ward 1. Staff recommends denial. Related item number 30, abeyance renotification, SDR 75854, for possible action request for a major amendment of our approved site development plan review for a proposed 7,776 square foot indoor floor area addition to an approved 205,972 square foot commercial recreation amusement development and proposed expansion of the parking lot area, Ward 1. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the applicant has proposed a 7,776 square foot expansion to the existing commercial recreation establishment, in addition to entitling the entire facility as a tavern and nightclub in order to accommodate future tenants and provide them flexibility in programming for their floor plans. which would not necessarily include all the available square footage. Nevertheless, staff is unable to support an addition and 2 additional land uses that intensify the previously approved alternative parking analysis, and staff is recommending denial of all applications. Please note additional letters of support and protest have been received since publication. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I get your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening again, Jennifer Lazovich, 1980 Festival Plaza Drive, here tonight on behalf of Area 15. For the 2 new planning commissioners who have not heard me talk about this project over the last couple of years, if you can give me just a minute to do a little background and then I can explain the applications. Area 15, you may have seen it if you're on the 15 driving right near Palace Station. It has come up. It is vertical now, and we kind of describe it sometimes as Burning Man in terms of the art that you may see at Burning Man meets CES with the electronics and things like that. In today's mall environment, it's very difficult to do bricks and mortar stores. It's a lot of entertainment-based activity that we're seeing, and the Fisher family is proud to bring this project to Las Vegas. To our knowledge, it is the only one of its kind, certainly in the United States and maybe even in the world. It is based entirely around the concept of entertainment. Our major anchor tenant as of today is Meow Wolf. Many of you may have heard of Meow Wolf. It is out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's an art installation and very difficult to describe, but really pretty amazing. And so Meow Wolf is going in for sure. We do have a food hall use that has a very known chef that has signed on to provide the food there, and we are getting daily interest for additional tenant space. That leads me to the first part of this application, which is for the 7,700 roughly square foot expansion of the mezzanine level. That is for a prospective tenant who has signed a lease with us called Emporium. They currently have a location in Northern California, and their concept is a barcade. They are a bar, but they also, for entertainment, have a lot of video games. In my generation, that was Pac-Man and Frogger, and I'm sure there's a number of them that I don't even know, but it's kind of that concept that they would have in there. That leads me into the next couple of applications, which sound probably bigger and grander than they really are, but it then triggers the parking variance. So when we were looking at the definition of nightclub, specifically as it related to the types of applications we may need for Emporium, we read the nightclub definition, and I just want to take a minute to read it, and that'll explain why we're asking for essentially a nightclub across the entire building. An indoor-outdoor drinking, dancing, or entertainment establishment that conducts its primary business after dark, has a dance floor or open area free of tables and chairs that would allow dancing or assembly occupancies, and has sound equipment to allow live or recorded music played for the purpose of dancing, whether or not dancing actually occurs. So based upon that definition, which is understandably broad for various reasons, all of Area 15 on the inside potentially fits into that definition. That doesn't mean it's a nightclub in the traditional sense that we're used to maybe seeing on the Strip, but it does mean that, for example, the Emporium, yeah, they will have an area, and sometimes they'll bring in a band, or sometimes they'll have a DJ. People might dance or people might not, but because of all of those factors, they become, for the city's purposes, the definition of a nightclub. Within the center part of Area 15, we have a spine bar or lumbar. Again, we anticipate playing music in that area. People may or may not dance. There will be alcohol, we hope, as I get to the explanation of the next application, and that triggers the idea of this nightclub use. So when we talked about doing that just as kind of a blanket land use across the whole site to give us flexibility on the tenants, it then triggered a different calculation in terms of parking. So that leads into the parking variance, and the parking variance looks quite excessive. But I will tell you that it is similar to something that this commission has seen somewhat recently, which is Circa downtown. They applied for, I think it's a 600,000 square foot nightclub, again, not under the idea that the entire building would be a nightclub, but they wanted the flexibility, and with that definition being as broad as it is, it's just safe to apply for that across the board. We do not believe that we will ever even utilize the amount of parking, which is 921 spaces that we're currently showing. We are in the process of doing other studies and other applications that are being heard at the city council level, where we believe more than 50% of the people that come here will be tourists. And while we hope the locals embrace this and come, and we want them to come, we do believe it's going to be heavily visited by tourists who will get there through other means of transportation rather than just bringing a car there and parking and using one of those spaces. So while the parking variance looks large, it is not in theory meant to be as large as it is because the nightclub use calculates it slightly differently. And then the final part of this application is the special use permit for the tavern. Interestingly, when we originally started Area 15 a couple of years ago, there was an existing tavern right down the street on Sirius called Boomers. And we would be unable to ask for a tavern application because of the proximity to that other tavern that was already there. So we commenced and got approved, and it's in your code today in Title 19.12.070, a provision that would allow, literally because of our size, an outdoor amusement area of this size to apply for a general on-sale, that's business license terms, but a general on-sale license, or in land use terms, a tavern land use application. We'd always contemplated that we were going to ask for that use across this entire site, across this entire building, because we have several tenants and they're all coming in with different concepts. One of the tenants that's approaching us is a jazz bar. They may just want beer and wine. Emporium will likely be more your traditional tavern, minus the gaming, but that will have a full bar, but no food or little food. Again, we'll have a food hall in there and the spine bar. So we've got a lot of different concepts coming forward, and we think that the tavern use permit allows us flexibility with how to place those tenants in there with different types of liquor licenses. So we agreed to disagree with staff on their recommendation for denial. I certainly understand why they had to do it, but the application actually looks worse than it is, and I hope that I have explained really what the application is about, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. This is noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard on this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing, turn it over to the commission for discussion. I can quickly jump in and say it is a little deceiving on the notification when it's across the entire use. I do remember when it came across with Circa, how they were still kind of programming, and live music can move from different parts of the property, and to have that flexibility on something, this isn't like a shopping center where it's a set retail tenant and you know where it's going to be and that's where it's going to live. It's an amusement property. And so I don't have any issue supporting the applications that are forward. Commissioner Schlotman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you. I kind of understand what's going on here, and I do understand staff and their report. I mean, it's what our code and ordinance states, but if I said it once, say it a million times, say it again tonight. I don't understand the nightclub license, don't like the nightclub license. I think it should be abolished. I think we should get rid of it here in the city. It's not adding any benefit to us that anybody here at the city can tell me. No, I mean, we're surrounded by some smart people, and they're all going to go in the back room, and they're going to tell me all these brilliant reasons why we need it. But I operated as an urban lounge for years, and then I found out people were dancing inside of my lounge, and so now I'm a nightclub. And Sam, or Commissioner Chairman, Sam. I think you have a nightclub, and we get to Circa, and we're talking about 600,000 square foot nightclubs, and then it scares people, and scares people when they hear a nightclub at Area 15, and it's just not a nightclub. I mean, because people are dancing, things such as that. So those are my opinions. Mr. Summerfield, Director, I'm going to let you go ahead and say a few things.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to, for the record, we have heard you, Commissioner, and in part highlighted by the example that this particular application in Circa brought forward. Staff is currently working on some options for City Council to consider to kind of bifurcate projects like this from the broad approach that our current nightclub ordinance applies, because you are absolutely correct. It is a little misleading when you see a project like this, like Circa, where it's really not what's on paper. And so we have heard you talk about this, so we are working on that, and we'll hope to have something before Planning Commission sometime in the next couple months for their consideration.
Thank you.
I have one question. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just wrap up, I appreciate Director Summerfield and the rest of our planning staff. You're amazing. You always listen to what we say, and you'll take that back to the planning department and draft these amazing ordinances and bring them to us. So thank you for doing that, and I think I could be in support of this tonight based on everything that we've heard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. I guess just one quick question for staff. So it's all through business licensing regulated the same way. They still come and do their inspections. Is there like a map that the applicant submits so they know where to go at some point, that where this is landed, so it's very clear at that point?
Mr. Chairman, yes, when they submit for their business license, they have to submit very detailed floor plans that will, to the exact square foot, delineate the exact area and how large it is and where the alcohol and nightclub activity is going to be restricted to.
So it's clear when there is an inspection where to go,
Yeah,
what to
it's
look
very
for.
clear, yes.
Great. Seeing no other lights, I'm prepared to make a motion, unless Commissioner Schlotman would like to.
Sure.
Please do.
Sure. On item number 27, abeyance re-notification, VAR 7675, 75852. Move to approve based on testimony tonight, subject to staff's conditions.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
And, Mr. Chairman, on item 28, SUP 76362, move to approve based on testimony tonight, subject to staff's conditions.
So motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
And, Mr. Chairman, item 29, SUP 76663, move to approve based on testimony tonight and subject to staff's conditions.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
And, Mr. Chairman, on item number 30, based on testimony heard tonight, I would move to approve, subject to staff's conditions.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, those items are all final action this evening unless appealed to the city clerk's office within 10 days.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to related items 31 and 32. 31 ZON 76110, applicant owner Alberto E. and Marcia G. Akval for possible action on request for rezoning from PR to C1 at 820, 826, 830 East Charleston Boulevard, Ward 3. Staff recommends approval. Related item 32, WVR 76111 for possible action on request for a waiver to allow a 4-foot side yard setback where 10 feet is required, Ward 3. Staff recommends approval. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, staff supports the rezoning and waiver applications as these requests support the goals of the redevelopment plan and the Vision 2045 Downtown Master Plan to redevelop and revitalize the area through the rehabilitation of existing architecture while intensifying the commercial uses adjacent to Charleston Boulevard. Please note additional letters of support and protest have been received since publication. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Get your name and address for the record, please.
Chairman and Commissioners, George Garcia, 1055 Whitney Ranch Drive, Suite 210. Pleasure to be before you. We concur with staff's analysis and recommendation. Be happy to go into any detail or answer any questions if there's anybody after I get done wants to speak on the item.
Okay, thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard in this item? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission. Commissioner Schlotman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have reviewed these items and I'm ready to make a motion.
Please do.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on item 31, I feel that this fits with where the neighborhood is going in Charleston. So on ZON 76110, I'll move to approve. Make a motion to approve, subject to staff's conditions.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
And, Mr. Chairman, on item 32, waiver 76111, move to approve, subject to staff's conditions.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, those items will move forward and be heard on the City Council agenda for August 7th, 2019.
Thank you. Moving on to items 33 through 35. ZON 76475, applicant owner George Cruz Diaz for possible action request for a rezoning from C1 to C2 at 400 West Owens Avenue, Ward 5. Staff recommends denial. Related item number 34, SUP 76476, or 76476, for possible action request for special use permit for an auto repair garage major use, Ward 5. Staff recommends denial. And finally, related item number 35, SDR 76477, for possible action request for site development plan review for the proposed 2,053 square foot expansion of an existing 1,050 square foot building, Ward 5. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting to rezone the subject site in order to accommodate a major auto repair facility, which would allow collision repair work such as auto body repair and paint, repairs to vehicles over 10,000 pounds, and engine installation, where currently these activities are prohibited at the existing minor auto repair facility. In addition, the conditional use regulations for major auto repair facility prohibits the use from locating adjacent to single-family residences, thus resulting in the requested special use permit, as the subject site shares a property line with the single-family residences to the north. Staff finds the proposed C2 zoning district and major auto repair facility to be too intense for residential adjacency and is recommending denial of both requests. Please note additional letters of support have been received since publication. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you get your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. Edgar Montalvo, 2209 Tosca Street, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89128. And I'm here on behalf, representing the client, the applicant. This is the site plan, and we've been working, it's very important for me to let you know that we've been working on this site for about a year. We've been working back and forth with the planning staff members and trying to make it work. Every time that we take a project, we take it very personal. We don't want anyone, we don't take any project that doesn't have any possibilities, or we don't take any projects where it's going to be a hazard, or it's going to be something that is not going to be for the community. By doing so, every time that we take a project, we also encourage our clients to improve what is the urban image. And this is the case on this project. And it's important also to let you know that the site plan then from where the recommendations were written was not the most recent site plan. So I'm speaking with Steve Swanton, which is our planner, and we decided actually to show you, on this site plan, we already incorporate all the conditions of approval they have. We don't have any problem with that for the approval of this project, but also we give it to him so he will see exactly what is happening. Some of those incongruences that we have is that, for example, he was stating that we don't have enough trees on the parking lot where we couldn't identify it, and the reason why we couldn't identify it is because he was working on a whole set of plans, and when we showed this, he said, "Oh, well, you're right. So this is not the plan that I'm working on." Some other of the issues that we have is that he was writing on his recommendations. Then there is no other C2s on the neighborhood. When we clearly can see we are on this corner, we can clearly see that across the street we have a 17-acre C2 property right in front, across the street on D Street. So those are the things that we are working with him right now. And the other major issue that they were pointing is that we have an R1 zone on the northern side of the property. So what we have here is, what we're proposing is a new block wall, 6-foot decorative block wall all along the north property line, and we are having an intense buffer every 10 feet, 20-gallon trees, so we can minimize all the nuisance that we can cause by this use. I would like to present a brief rendering movie that we have for you so you can understand pretty much what is the intent of this project. So if you allow me, I'm just gonna show it to you, this presentation, as we've been doing it in some other projects, so you can better understand what is gonna happen here.
I agree. I think we get the gist of the video.
Yes.
And an understanding of the site plan. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we go to public hearing?
No, that will be it. Pretty much, the client agreed to keep that iconic canopy, gas station that he has. Instead to be removing it, we're gonna just enhance that canopy that can be like an iconic point to the street. So that's what we're trying to do right now. So we're trying to improve more than causing a nuisance for the zone.
Thank you very much. Okay, this was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard on this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing, turn it over to the commissioners for a discussion. Commissioner Williams?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've actually visited the site on 2 different occasions just to get a better understanding. And I mean, obviously, there's concerns from a just sheer noise perspective with residents being right over a fence. And so did I hear you say you're proposing trees to help with that nuisance, or what's?
Yeah, we're proposing to have an intense buffer back there on the northern property line. We're gonna have a 6-foot decorative block wall, so we're gonna be removing all the fences or intent of fences that we have, cyclonic, iron fences, everything. We're gonna just install a new 6 feet tall decorative block wall, and then intense buffering with trees, 20 gallons, everything staggered every 10 feet on that line. So we will reduce we will increase the buffering that we can have there for the neighbors.
And have we talked to residents?
No, not yet. Not yet. We're planning to meet with them because we didn't know what was the recommendations of the planning, on the planning department, but we can meet with them easily. I don't see they will oppose, as right now it's not really as we're showing here. So I don't see any problem with that. We can meet with them if it is necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, just really not a fan of heavy commercial, changing that to a C2, backing up to residents that live right there, and you've actually got a couple different avenues where they're at. I'm going to have to agree with the staff report on this one. Recommend and denial.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion for denial on item 7, or ZON 76475, rezoning.
There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Williams, on your, a yes vote, yeah, okay. Please post, and that motion carries. I'll need item number 34.
And then item number 34, I'd like to make a motion for denial, SUP 76476.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. A yes vote is for denial. Please post. That motion carries.
And item number 35, I'd like to make a motion for denial, SDR 76477.
So motion on the floor. Please cast your vote. A yes vote is to follow staff's recommendation for denial. Please post. And that motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, those items will move forward for City Council for their consideration at the August 7th, 2019 agenda. I would just ask the applicant to make sure that he works with my planning staff to make sure that we have the most up-to-date plans available for analysis prior to that meeting, like now, so that we can update the staff report accordingly for council.
We will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to items number 36 through 38. VAR 76459, applicant Summit Homes of Nevada LLC, owner Presidio Summit Regina 18 LLC, for possible action request for a variance to allow a 10-foot tall retaining wall where 6 feet is allowed and an overall wall height of 16 feet where 12 feet is allowed on Lot 16 of an approved 18-lot single-family residential subdivision on the south side of Centennial Parkway, west of Fort Apache Road, Ward 6. Staff recommends approval. Related item 37, VAR 76460, for possible action request for a variance to allow a 10-foot tall retaining wall where 6 feet is allowed and an overall wall height of 16 feet where 12 feet is allowed on Lot 17 of an approved 18-lot single-family residential subdivision, Ward 6. Staff recommends approval. And related item number 38, VAR 76461, for possible action request for a variance to allow a 10-foot tall retaining wall where 6 feet is allowed, an overall wall height of 16 feet where 12 feet is allowed on Lot 18 of an approved 18-lot single-family residential subdivision, Ward 6. Staff recommends approval. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair, I think Commissioner Williams has one more thing for that last item, I'm sorry.
On items 33 through 35, I would recommend, at least before the city council meeting, having a neighborhood meeting with the residents just to get their feel on the project. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Thank you. Can you get your name and address for the record, please?
Robert Cunningham, 6030 South Jones Boulevard.
Excuse me, Robert, I
Staff
apologize.
report.
Yeah. Can we get the staff report, please? My apologies.
Mr. Chairman, due to existing drainage patterns on the subject site, there are no viable alternatives that would allow lower retaining walls for the 3 lots in question. In addition, there are 12 to 15-foot tall trees that help mitigate the views for the neighboring assisted living apartment development. Staff finds the variance requests are warranted and are not self-imposed hardships. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of all 3 variance requests. Please note additional letters of support have been received since publication.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cunningham, can I get you?
Good evening, Robert Cunningham, 6030 South Jones Boulevard. Here's where our site's located. We're directly adjacent to assisted living facility. The 3 lots in question are in this general vicinity here. I also have the grading plan here. What happened was when we went through our drainage study, it was required that we actually raise the elevation of the street. Instead, it naturally falls away from Centennial, but for flood protection, they required we elevate that. When we did that, we tried to work with the back version, or the back portion of this lot. It ended up becoming elevated. It's actually about 8.5 feet above grade, but staff being very conservative asked us or applied for 10 feet just to make sure there was no need for us to ever come back here. We actually have a permit for grading, and they started grading the site already, so it's under construction. So it's really these 3 lots here. They back up to parking located on this assisted living facility. Again, staff mentioned there's tall trees, pine trees, and there's actually a power transformer located right here. We understand that this is a variance, but hopefully the Planning Commission will see fit to recommend approval of this as well.
Thank you,
I'll be
Mr.
happy to answer any questions you have tonight.
Thank you very much. This is noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard in this item? Seeing no one, will we close the public hearing? Vice Chair DeSalvio.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no other comments, I'll just make a motion for approval.
Okay.
Item number 36, VAR 76459, motion for approval.
So motion on the floor, please cast your votes. please post. And that motion carries.
Item number 37, VAR 76460, motion for approval.
There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
Item number 38, VAR 76461, motion for approval.
There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, those items are final action this evening unless appealed to the city clerk's office within 10 days.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 42, VAR 76400, applicant owner Aldegunda Duran Mendoza, for possible action on a request for a variance to allow a 6-foot corner side yard setback where 15 feet is required for proposed attached accessory structure, and to allow a 0-foot separation when the main building where 6 feet is required at 1400 Comstock Drive, Ward 5. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, no evidence of a unique or extraordinary circumstance has been presented in that the applicant has created a self-imposed hardship by proposing an accessory structure that fails to meet Title 19 standards for building setback and separation from the primary dwelling. Staff therefore recommends denial of the variance request. Please note that there are additional letters of protest since publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening. Rick Salem, 596 Kelsford Drive, representing the owner. What we're proposing is a patio cover located in the side yard attached to the dwelling. It is over a existing patio area and barbecue area. The structure itself is 37 feet long by 18 feet wide. The patio is existing and the barbecue existed. Now, he's coming before you just to build the patio cover. The patio cover is complementary to the home. It covers, the roofing is exactly the same, all the stucco is the same, and the structure is attached to the dwelling. Building department and I have had many conversations about that, and they agree that we do not need the 6-foot separation. We are attached. So we are rarely asking for the variance for the side yard setback. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Salem. This is noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard in this item? Seeing no one, I will turn over to the commission. Commissioner Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to motion for approval on item VAR 76400.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Mr. Chairman, that item will move forward to City Council and be heard as a part of their agenda on August 7th, 2019.
Thank you. Moving on to related items 45 and 46. 45, SUP 76446, applicant owner Charleston Towers LLC, for possible action request for a special use permit for proposed mixed-use development at the northwest corner of Charleston Boulevard and 10th Street, Ward 3. Staff recommends approval. And related item number 46, SDR 76448, for possible action request for site development plan review for proposed 8-story mixed-use development consisting of 343 residential units and 8,000 square feet of commercial space with waivers to allow 331 parking spaces where 552 are required, a 40-foot residential adjacency setback where 282 is required, a 0-foot landscape buffer along portions of the north property line where 8 feet is required, and a 0-foot landscape buffer on the east, south, and west property lines where 15 feet is required. Ward 3, staff recommends approval. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, despite the requested waiver, staff finds that the proposed development achieves the intent of the Vision 2045 Downtown Las Vegas Master Plan, which encourages higher density mixed-use development in order to deliver an energetic urban way of life and high-quality physical environments for locals and visitors. The proposed use also meets the purpose of the Live-Work Overlay District along parts of Charleston Boulevard that allows owners and operators of businesses to occupy joint living and work quarters in commercial industrial areas where other types of residential uses are inappropriate. Staff therefore recommends approval of both applications. Please note that there are additional letters of protest and support since publication. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I get your name and address for the record, please?
Chairman, Commissioners, George Garcia, 1055 Whitney Ranch Drive, Suite 210. Pleasure to be before you, and if you look at the overhead, just to basically give you a better understanding of what the project called the Charleston would look like. And again, I think we certainly concur with staff's analysis and recommendations and conditions, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard on this item? I see one person. I see two people. Just two people. Name and address the record if you're for or against.
Good evening. You're Angela Lozada of Lozada Law Firm, 711 South 9th Street. I just learned of this request, and I am the property that will be most affected by this because the zero setbacks will actually affect my access to my property. I'm going to move to the center, and I apologize. As I said, I just learned of this, so this is a very crude drawing. I apologize for this, but unfortunately my internet went down today and I could not print anything. So the pink is the lots on 10th Street and 9th Street. My property is this orange one that is going to be affected on two sides. The only parking for my property is accessed through the back, through the alley, through a very tight gate where it's very hard to pull through and park through that now without a zero setback as is being proposed. Further, the amount of parking that they're requesting, the one property here is a residential, and this is another commercial property. There is very limited parking and access on the street anyways due to the driveways that are there. They're only requesting 331 parking spaces, even though there are 343 units. That doesn't include the employments for the apartments. It doesn't include the 8,000 square foot commercial, any employees that are going to be there as well. And then we have a 7-Eleven across the road there. So my request would be to deny this just solely because of the access that it's going to prevent that I'm going to have to my property. Like I said, this is the only parking available to my property, and if we have a zero setback, right now 103 is completely vacant. There's no fencing, there's nothing, and it's a very tight squeeze for us to park here. Unfortunately, I did not get to design or do any of this. I only purchased my property on May 3rd, but it is a law office, and already that's the only staff parking. My clients have to park on the street. If we're having to compete with another 191 proposed people, it's going to severely affect my business and my access to my property.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming out. Can I get your name and address for the record, sir?
Good evening, Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Ron Ripp. I live at 823 Park Paseo in the Johannes Park Historic Neighborhood, and I took the time to come down here to voice my
Could you spell your
opposition.
last name for me?
Ripp, R-I-P-P.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Ripp.
My opposition is mainly to the landscape buffer that they're trying to ask for elimination of that requirement. Actually, hearing her parking issues, that's a really good reason as well to oppose this. The Johannes Park neighborhood, which is immediately adjacent to this, was started by people like me who dreamed that projects like this would come downtown. Vibrant, people-friendly. We got voted top 10 neighborhood by planners across the nation because of the work that we did. And we knew that we were sowing the seeds that could one day make this an interesting area that would attract people that want to do these kind of projects. And the way that we did it was by working hand in hand with the city to come up with the plan. And that plan included as a kind of a major component, landscaping. You know, hard edges of buildings, no landscaping, tough parking things are things that happen in cities, but here we have the opportunity to prevent that from happening. This is a great time to do it. Asking for a zero buffer, to me, in my backyard, actually is my front yard. I use Charleston. It's kind of a slap in the face to everything that we work for as residents, and I know how this works. Once they get it, it's a waiver that starts with the neighbor, they're gonna get a waiver, and somebody else is gonna get a waiver, and then we're not gonna have any plants or any soft edges downtown. It's just not gonna, I respect that a developer has decided that building downtown on a large scale is a good investment opportunity. It is. I ask that the work that we did, the work that got us here, the work that made this a good opportunity be respected as well. A simple landscape buffer that's already part of the requirement is going to help make it vibrant, people-friendly, and the downtown that John S. Park's been fighting for a long time.
Thank you, Mr. Ripp.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else from the public like to be heard in this? Seeing no one else, I'll close the public hearing portion, and I'll allow the applicant a couple of minutes for a rebuttal.
Chairman, Commissioners, if we can go to the overhead, we're not eliminating the alley. In fact, if anything, as we go forward, the alley will get improved. But if you can zoom in a little here, you can see this is the alley condition here. That alley condition remains. It'll be improved, if anything else, as we go forward. So that will not deny them access to the property. That will not change. As far as the land, project is the exact same foot that's been previously approved. So this is not the first time this is coming back and changing really a little bit of the exterior and the interior layout of the building. It's really not a difference in the site plan. So the lot line configuration, the footprint of the building is identical to the previous approvals. As far as the landscape buffering, if you look at the plan here, what we're doing again is not your traditional sort of landscape buffer. We're creating an urban street scene. So we're creating a plaza conditions. We're putting in landscaping trees. I think there are about 50 trees wrapping around the site so that we're not having a barren and putting the building literally up against the property. There is a urban walking environment that's comfortable, pleasant place to have, and we'll have street trees. So it's not that there's no landscaping and it's barren. It's an urban environment. And that's the entire intent of this purpose in this building and the parking is to create that urban environment. And as staff acknowledges, there's going to be public transportation. There's the Uber and Lyft environment. There's the bicycles, the motorcycles that we see today. All of those allow for an appropriate reduction. We also have offsetting uses between the commercial and the residential, where some of them are operating during the daytime and some at the nighttime. We're actually probably providing more parking than probably any of the law district down there in terms of the ratio and mix that we're providing. And with that, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer any of the questions of the commission.
Thank you very much. I will turn it over to the commission for discussion. Commissioner Schlotman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you, thank you very much. Mr. Garcia, can you tell me exactly where the 0-foot landscape buffer is on north property line?
The landscaping, again, is we have landscaping here, so from the standpoint, it's not the traditional.
Is it the area just along the alley?
Yes,
Okay.
the zero. So yes, as far as where we're going to have no landscaping is in the alley condition.
Right.
To help assist the problem that she was referring to. We don't want to make that a worse condition.
And that makes sense. That makes sense. I mean, I had a project come through recently where I had a 0-foot landscape setback because I had a sidewalk leading from the city sidewalk up to the front door of the building. Mm-hmm. And so to keep people from walking on landscaping, we had to put in that sidewalk, which triggered that. And it sometimes sounds worse than it actually is. I remember this when it came through, it was more intense, there was more units and more commercial space. If I'm not mistaken, City Council approved a extension time like a year ago, so this still could be executed in a more intense fashion. What we're doing here today is, if this gets approved, then we're actually expunging the old entitlements, and we're actually making it where it's a less intense project. So taking all those things in consideration, considering it was approved by Planning Commission, City Council in the past, I have no problem supporting this today, seeing staff's recommending approval, and I understand some things that you're doing in here. It is an urban environment, a little bit different than, something out in Summerlin or somewhere else. So anyways, no further questions.
I just had one question. In the alley where it's no landscape, I see the 24-foot alley, and then it looks like just under 16 feet where there's no landscape. Is that sidewalk there? Is it?
This area here, you can see, again, has a paver-type treatment. So whether that's stamped concrete or whether it's going to be actual pavers at this point, I couldn't tell you. But that's obviously when we get into the final work with the city on the permitting, the final decisions on that will be made.
Okay. That was my other question. Commissioner Toussaint?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about this project. I went to John S. Park. I grew up here. I went to Mayfair School, which is very close to this area, and it just makes my heart just sing to see this project and projects like this come forth. So you'll have my approval tonight. Thank you.
Commissioner Schlotman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on item number 45, SUP 76446, move to approve subject to staff's conditions.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
Yes, and Mr. Chairman, on item 46, SDR 76448, move to approve subject to staff's conditions.
There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
Commissioners, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, those are final action this evening unless appealed to the city clerk's office within 10 days.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the director's business, number 47, TXT 7662, applicant owner, City of Las Vegas, for possible action on request to amend LVMC Title 19.12, permissible uses, and 19.18, definitions and measures to clarify and define distance separation and access requirements, and to provide for other related matters. Staff recommends denial. Could we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the proposed amendments address wording specific to one or more minimum distance separation requirements in each of the listed uses. The amendments are intended to clarify ambiguities in how or to what the applicable separation requirement is to be applied. No other issues are explicitly addressed in the amended wording or uses in this section. Staff recommends approval of the text amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Director, mine says denial on here.
Mr. Chairman, that is a typo on yours. It definitely should be that staff is recommending for approval of this text amendment. This is a text amendment at the direction of council based on an appeal regarding an application where there was some ambiguity about what the word access meant. So again, this amendment simply addresses that ambiguity. We don't make any substantive changes. We just clarify what the word access means in each instance it appears in our code.
This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard on this item? Seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. And if there's any discussion or a motion, I'd like to hear it. Commissioner Toussaint?
A motion to approve?
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Please post. And that motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, that item will move forward to City Council for them to hear in ordinance form. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And final item, citizens' participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to the matters with the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. No subject may be acted upon by the Planning Commission unless the subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come to the podium, give your name for the record. The amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Commissioner Schlotman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Well, let's start here.
Mr. Ripp.
I'll be quick. I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time to look into that and make sure, because when I got my little card, it said 0 landscape buffer on that one item, and that's why I'm here, and I'm glad to see that that's not the case, and I appreciate all the time that you take to make sure that downtown is becoming the cool place it should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for coming out here tonight. Yeah, I sat in this planning commission for 8 years now, and one I missed one meeting. It was last week's meeting, or 2 weeks ago. No regrets. I caught a 50-pound mahi-mahi. But, well, I'm going on another trip. I'll bring you some more. But Commissioner Quinn is not here tonight, and, you know, I served on the commission with her for 8 years. She was on for 12 years. Just wanted to say I enjoyed my time working with Commissioner Quinn, having her up here. I thought she did an excellent job for all those years, and she really cared about what the public said. She's always concerned about what the public's views were. She wanted to have neighborhood meetings, and she is a very good steward for Ward 1. So Commissioner Quinn, if you're out there, just want to say we're going to miss you, and I may or may not be around for a couple more years, but we'll see. And that's it. Thank you.
Very nice words. Commissioner Tucson.
Yes, I also would like to thank Commissioner Quinn. When I was first appointed to the Planning Commission, she was very kind. She invited me to her home, showed me where to park because she thought I was directionally impaired, which she probably was right, because I don't know my left from my right sometimes. And she helped me along. If I had questions, I knew I could always go and ask her, and I wish she was here tonight, so I'd give her a big hug and tell her thank you.
That's very nice. She wasn't that nice to me. She was very tough on me. But I think it was that tough love is what I liked. So, but we had a lot of laughs and a sweet goodbye to her from the commission. Anyone else like to be heard? Mr. Klein? Nothing? Okay. We will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.